Go from there. First thing I like to do before I even start is take the nose assembly off the tool, okay? And we're going to put air on it, and let's see what it is actually, at least let's see what we can see that's wrong with it from the outside and know what it does before you rip it apart. I've seen people take tools apart, never plug it in, and then when they put it back together it doesn't work, and now they say, well, is that what was wrong with it to begin with? We're just going to take the, what we call retaining nut loose. And this particular one is very tight. No, it shouldn't be, but okay. Now we're going to, because this is the eccentric piston, we don't have to worry about holding anything because the piston just can't turn. So we're going to break this loose. Now this normally is not that tight either. Once you break it loose, it usually comes off fairly easy. So we're going to have to look in here and see what's going on. Okay, this is the old style, which we still use on a lot of the aerospace noses.
Yep. Just kind of hold it.
Okay, this is a collet with a collet lock which has a dovetail, and when you put it back together the dovetail has to fit within, and then what we're going to do is we're going to slide it in here and then we'll put it back on the nose.
Okay.
And tool, which we'll go through when we put the tool back together. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, first thing you want to look at is your reservoir. You'll notice that the reservoir on this, which you may have a hard time on the camera seeing, is you can see springs from basically here to the end. That means that your reservoir, that's where the indicator is right at the moment. Normally there's a red ring around here, but they wear off.
That's where you want it.
Right, you don't want it to go down below. What you don't want to do is lose sight of that reservoir.
Okay.
If it's all springs, now you have no idea what's in the tool or not in the tool. As long as I can see part of the reservoir, I know that the tool, at least it's not low on hydraulic oil. Now, the next thing I do is I look and see how does the piston look. Well, that piston right now looks like it's all the way forward. And how do we tell? The way we tell on this particular tool, if you guys look through this hole, you'll see on the piston itself is a little tiny what we call staking hole. The staking hole is where you're going to lock in that collar, that soft collar that I just put back on there with the dovetail. You're supposed to go in with a little staking punch and give it a little tap. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people will just put a little thread lock on their piston and put it on and snug it up. And that's okay, just that you have to keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't loosen up. Because remember we talked about drifting being lots of times from, for example, from sealant. Most of the time where drift comes from is because people don't stake the collet and the collet loosens up. What happens to it when the collet loosens up?
It gets more, it gets longer.
The anvil, which is the outer section, is on with the retaining nut. It doesn't move. So now when your piston comes forward, eventually you have too long of collet, and that is the same thing as, it's doing the same thing. It's stopping that piston from coming forward. Right, and that's a slower process. That might take days before you actually see a drift.
Yeah.
When we're done, I'm going to actually take a tool and we're going to drift it. You will actually hear the valve open and you'll see the drift. And I'm going to do that by extending the length of the collet out so you can see what happens. Okay, now, let's put air on it. Nope, that is the right fitting.
Yeah, that one's just a little...
Okay, so now we're going to cycle a tool, and what we're going to just look for is, first thing I want to do is look for, I don't see any physical oil leakage on this tool. So that's a good sign. That at least means that the seals that are involved with the external are not leaking. Now we're going to cycle a tool. Now if you notice, it took a long time for that tool to move. That automatically tells me that somewhere along the way, even though this reservoir is showing that we have oil in it, there's air in this tool. There's something wrong with the tool, because the minute I hit the trigger, the piston should have been moving.
It's just building pressure enough.
Right. Now we also have, that's not a good sign. We have air leaking out of the exhaust. So that's telling me that we also have a problem within here or in the air piston. So we got a couple different things. I'm inclined to believe with this tool, without going any farther, is that we have an air problem, not an oil problem. Because the reservoir is not low. Now let me look to make sure. See, we haven't lost the reservoir. It's still there. So that tells me that we probably have a solid column of oil, no air in the oil, but there's something in the air circuit here that's causing a problem. And you can tell because you shouldn't hear all of that air coming out the bottom. First thing we want to do before we go any farther is, we know there's a little spring tension on the reservoir, okay?
Yeah.
Tools normally don't have any pressure in them. They're normally neutralized except for the spring tension from the piston. So that's maybe 100, 150, maybe 200 pounds of tension in there. What that will do is if you don't lock that forward, you could get a bath. Every Huck tool of this type comes with, that has a reservoir. Uh-oh. Almost got electrocuted there, or strangled by the wire. This is called a fill tool. The little oil piston in here has a thread in the bottom. It's a hollow piston and has a thread in the bottom. So what you're going to do is you're going to spin this in, and eventually it's going to hit the bottom. And now, if you watch, it's hard to see, but the whole thing is turning now. Yeah. And you'll notice we have a short side and a long side. We use the long side, and we pull it forward. Now, that doesn't want to lock forward because sometimes the hole goes in too deep. So I'm just going to back it up a little bit. There. So that's going to just hold that forward until we get the head off of it. Then we can take and put the head here and pop the oil out of it so you don't get splashed. Okay, so we're ready to take it apart. First thing we do is we're going to pull off the first 4 screws on the head, and we're going to actually just wiggle the head right off. The only thing that holds the head on are the 4 screws underneath. They have the little round ends. I'll tell you, Now, we have glands that hold this together, so all you got to do is rock it. Okay? Okay. And there's your piston, your head assembly. Oh. And these are just 2 glands. This is a new design we came out with when we came out with this style tool. Rather than using face seals, when you pull these out, and I'm going to use a screwdriver to get them out, there's another set of O-rings on the other side. So this tool is extremely safe. If this head would have to just about fall off before these things would leak. Where when you use a face seal, which would be just an O-ring seal, a little bit of looseness on the head, man, you got oil squirting out. So what I'm going to do here is just so that we don't get, we're just going to let the oil come out. So now there's no pressure in there. Okay? Okay. So now the head, that's ready to get taken apart. And we'll leave that sit for a little bit. Okay, next thing is let's pull the glands out. Okay, and what I normally do is I just get underneath here like this and pop it up. Then I can get it right here. It comes out easy. Okay?
Yeah, I like that. That's way better than that flat seal.
And same thing here. And that's your 2. They're the 2 glands for the head. Now, what do we have in here? This is where the majority of your oil is. This is return. I'll tip it over a little bit so you can see it. Pull, return. Okay? This is the top of the piston. When this rod comes up, you're going to see that up at the top of the piston. And this is the other side that's going to move the oil to the back of the piston. So what we do is we just, yeah, that is very clean, believe it or not. Slowly, I want to get all the oil out of it, and I'm going to also use this to help us. Before we can take any more of the tool apart, okay, if you, on this drawing over here, I'm just going to go off screen for a second. There is a screw on the top of what we call the intensifier piston, right? That screw needs to come out before we can do anything else. We could take the whole tool apart, or the bottom of the tool apart, and then go down with a long Allen wrench and fight with a socket on the other side, or we can use the air pressure to hold the piston up and to keep it from turning. And then we only have to use the Allen wrench on the top. So I'm going to bring this up nice and slow because I don't want oil flying all over. Now this tool, by the way, it's not a hydraulic problem. This is going to be an air problem. You can hear it already. There is your intensifier gland. Now watch, I'm going to move this slowly. See it go down? Okay? Don't do it fast without a rag over it because even without a lot of oil in there, it still can squirt. Okay? Now, I'm going to let go for a sec. Let's see what Allen wrench we need. I think it's a, okay? See that? Now the air is keeping that piston from turning. So it's just a nice way to do this. Take that screw right out. Now this one you can grab because we're up far enough. Good. Okay? Now I'm going to let go of the trigger. The air, on this particular one, it doesn't always happen. Don't get nervous. This one stayed up top. Some of them are stuck a little bit and they might go back down, but that's okay. Later on we'll get it, you know, they're not hooked together. Be careful of that air. It's a lot of CFM in there, so. Okay, there you go. I'm gonna let you take it from here. Now what we're gonna do we've got the head off. We want to pull our air cylinder off, get all of the bottom end of the tool. So the first thing we're going to do is take the Allen wrenches off to get our cover off. And we're going to take the cross arms, take everything apart on the outer part of the lower section of the tool. I'm going to be horse biting ended. So let's take the cross arm off, and then we can flip it over and we'll take the cylinder apart. So far, nothing too complicated, just been basic.
And the good thing about it is once you do this, now you can fix a 244, 245.
Yeah, you've got a whole series of tools that you can...
Yeah, so it's nice.
You know what, we can take this down now. We can use this.
What do you want to do?
Let's just take this off here. Actually, that's good now because now we know that that wood is exactly the right size. It fits perfect.
Just pop it up.
Pop it right up.
I plan it like that.
Okay, rubber gasket and nothing that's rocket science. This is just...
This gasket.
Do those things ever get plugged?
Okay, the reason... That O-ring right there, can get a shot at that O-ring. That O-ring only does one thing.
Spacer?
That O-ring you put there to hold this in place while you put it together basically. And once you put air on it, everything pops out. This can't come out, but they just put that there to ensure that it doesn't, otherwise it can go off to the side. There is some slop, and you'll see when I take this off of here, mallet, you watch, this will go down. Now, it went down a little bit. Some of them go down more, depending on the tolerances. And that's where they worry, is that when you go to put this on, you'll see, and this one's not even that bad. This one you can't mess up. Yeah. So even if you didn't have it on here, it would be okay. Because you'll see that's not going down. But some of them, depending on the castings, they go down a little bit farther. So they put that in there just to ensure that it stays in place. If you leave that off, the tool's not going to fall apart. This is the one piece you can leave off. How's that? Okay. This is a return spring. Why do we do that? Really,
Bring it up, yeah, because there's nothing...
well, the air will naturally bring it up, but we went to this spring because on a lot of the tools where they decide they want to do pull-in, okay, they reduce air pressure. Then it doesn't come back up. Yeah. So this was here to help with that and just help make move quicker. Yeah. So you want to make sure you put that back in, but that comes out. Now we're ready to take the bottom off. We use a spiral lock ring. It's like a slinky. Okay, and Roberto's going to show you how to get that off because I think he knows. There's usually a little spot, a little tab where you can get your screwdriver in. And we'll see if you can jam this. Okay, kind of bend it just like a slinky. Don't try to pull it, don't laugh. The 245 comes out easy, okay, and it also has, it's a much smaller cap. What I really recommend, rather than putting air on it, because you can really hurt yourself, no, I'm going to tell you how to do it with air because people, you know that somebody's going to try it. And I don't want you to do it, but if you're going to do it, at least do it the right way so you don't hurt yourself. Yeah. But this is like a bullet coming out here. I mean, we're talking we got a lot of air in here. I mean, you got 100 pounds of air and you got that big area, so we're talking a lot of force. This is a pain to get out. What I recommend on the bigger tools like this one, I recommend you get yourself a metal bar and drill a couple holes in the metal bar, and then you can run the screws down, and then you go like this and pop it right out. Mm-hmm. A lot of people take these bottom screws, put them in.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and what's nice is if you have square screwdrivers. Because the square screwdriver, you can usually put it down here like this and then get under it. But you'll see, but even this, watch, you'll see this is really, really tight.
Oh, shoot.
Okay? Now, can it be done by popping it out? Yes. But you have to remember that we no longer have that intensifier piston hooked to that rod. So that piston and rod in there is a potential bullet also. So the only way you can pop this out is you have to do it with the trigger in. Because with the trigger in, you put air between here and the piston and here and the cylinder. So the piston goes up and this comes out. Otherwise, they all come out and you can really do a lot of damage. The other thing is I would do it with a regulator and just put a little bit of air on it. I don't do it because I'm telling you, if it gets away from you, you're going to hurt yourself. So let's see if we can get a couple big screwdrivers. Okay, there, that moved up, right?
Yeah. That's probably the safest way to do it right there.
Yep, just get under it. There you
I kind
go.
of like your metal bar idea though.
That is, and then you can use a rubber mallet and pound it up.
Yeah.
So you would lock this down, and then you would just take your hammer and pop it off.
There you go. That's a good one.
Beautiful.
Okay,
That's what'll be in
I
there.
tighten this.
that's good enough.
That's
Okay, are you recording? Good.
We're recording.
Okay. Just slowly pull it up. Don't get crazy because when it comes out, we don't want to smack it against anything. Okay?
that's easy.
That is real heavy grease that somebody used.
I thought I would need the rest of that.
That's exactly what that is.
Right.
And
So they use the wrong link.
there's no reason to, unless there's something wrong with the piston rod, never take them apart. You know, they're pretty much, we put them together, we check them for concentricity, make sure they're right. We can pull the O-ring off of here because we're going to replace it. And the O-ring is, actually it's not an O-ring, it's called a quad ring.
Quad ring?
Yes, because if you, I'll pass it around, it has 4 sides on it. It's a square ring. Now the back cap itself, where's that back cap? Oh, right here. The back cap itself, okay, has an O-ring.
Sure.
And
Yeah, somebody will find something. We know that's somebody will do something.
okay, that gland has a hex. We're going to take, okay, see if that'll tighten up again, just lightly. Okay, now we need to get an inch, I think it's an 1 3/8 socket. We have big sockets. This is the gland, okay, and the gland has 2 different pieces depending on which model you have. This is an older one, okay. This one will have a gland that actually has a threaded center section. This part threads in. This particular gland you see here has a retaining ring on it. This is the newest one out of all of them. Okay, our prints show the newest one. This is one of the original 246s. It probably has this one that splits apart, or it could have this. Right. If a gland looks different, then you need to get a hold of Huck or get a hold of Roger. I think most of the 246s had a gland that had a internal, like a C-clip that went inside. This one has an external clip on it. It's a newer one. Okay, so we won't mess taking that out, but it's important. It'll tell you on the print right here. Oh, yep, 100 to 120 foot-pounds. That's important that you do that. What we're going to do on this tool right now is I want to check the air valve because we have air leaking out of the bottom of the cylinder. So let's take it back out of the vise, and we can. Whoop, okay, and let's flip it over. Okay, now let's pull this back out again. And we're going to actually pull the air valve out. We're going to take a look at it. We're going to replace the O-rings anyway, but I want to see if it looks like something's bad on those O-rings. We'll put the tool back together, the lower end of the tool. We'll get it all back together before we work on the head. We can test that lower end to make sure it's all okay before we even start. This is our air distributor valve. Okay, and
Grease.
yes.
Grease.
And what we're going to do is we're going to pull off these O-rings and replace them. Now, these O-rings don't look bad. I take that back. There are some pretty good chunks out of it. So we'll rebuild that. So we'll take those O-rings off also.
3 pieces.
Yes.
One in there.
Okay, now how does this work? The reason there's 2 O-rings on the top, when your valve is all the way up, okay, this blocks off the port so air doesn't leak out the bottom. And your air comes in under here, okay, and fills the top and holds the piston down. When you push this down, this goes down far enough to allow the air now to turn on underneath. This goes between, okay, the passage that this was above before, now that passage goes in between the O-rings. The air that was in the upper part of the cylinder vents through here and down out the bottom. It's trapped between these 2 O-rings. That's how we created the totally bottom exhaust rather than bottom for one part and upper for the other part.
Otherwise, it wouldn't have had a hollow tube.
Right, it would have been a solid tube with only 1 O-ring, and when you push this down, the air would blow out right here, and you'd have to have that deflector to keep it from hitting you in the face. Plus, everything goes through, makes the tool very quiet. Okay, so let's pull off. I'll let you pull off those O-rings. I'm just going to throw these over here. If you look at these O-rings carefully, you're going to see. Take a look at that O-ring there just on the top. You'll see that it's got all kinds of nicks and flat spots on it and everything else. Very hard to see with the small O-ring, but they're there. Now, that's probably what's causing the problem. We're not sure. We're going to wait and find out. One other thing that we want to take out here is normally, let's see if we can get this out without hurting myself. Let me just get a little picture here. This is the intensifier piston, okay? Right. Now, I'm going to leave that in. Normally, when you take the handle apart, you can knock it out. Without taking the handle apart, I'm going to have to pull it out of there. I'm thinking about just leaving it in for now because
Threaded at all or no?
we had no piston drift. No, let's see if we can get it out. I just need something.
No, it's,
Yeah.
that was it holds on the end of this rod.
Yeah, this will work.
With that
I got
screw
it.
he took out.
Well, I'm just trying to get it clean so you can. And you'll see this side here is hollow.
Okay, cool.
Okay, and that's where the screw goes in. And the other side is not as deep, and that's where you would put that.
That's what it says.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Okay, we're going to need, now if you look in here, this particular one has a steel sleeve in it. Okay? And some of the older 246s will have, right here where this bump is, will have a plug in here that's another relief valve. And if you have oil leaking out of there, that relief valve needs to be taken out. And this one doesn't have it, because I just know by looking at it. And you can tell because when you pull it out, it won't be a solid plug in there. It'll be, you'll see it's like a cartridge. If you have that style, what I recommend doing is getting rid of that, and you can order from Huck. If it's leaking, you can order from Huck just a solid plug. We deemed after the original design that it wasn't necessary. So for years, for the first like 6 years, we put them in, and then they decided we didn't need them anymore, that it really wasn't doing other than creating leaks. You won't find it probably on most of this stuff. Like I said, this one has a solid plug, and I can just tell because when I look in the little hole, I'm sorry, right here, that looks like an aluminum piece. It's hard to see it, but there's a little place you can look in, and if it's black, it's usually the steel cartridge, and the other one, that replacement plug, was just a nice little piece of aluminum. The new handle, the newest handles, I don't even think will have anything in them. They're going to be solid. Okay, now we're ready to, let's put new seals in this. We're going to get it back together, and then we'll pull the head apart afterwards. Okay, so we're going to have to get a seal kit.